You better stay on your feet. I have a few questions for you that we have not discussed.
We know there is an industry transformation. We want to be part of it, but we actually don't want to just be part of it. We want to lead it. Once you start like this, then everything else is about, okay, so the how.
In those early times, sort of 2019 to 21 or so, what were the main challenges you faced to make sustainability your business strategy?
Stakeholders within the company saying, this is great, but are we going to really make an impact? And questioning that was the second part we needed to address and answer. So engagement, internal engagement.
What could you say has been achieved? You're one of the longest standing people in the industry who's been working on, what's different now from 2018? What have we actually done? Or is this just a big PR stunt?
Back in 2019, I would never have been invited in a podcast to talk about societal change. We're here in the longer game. We need to hold, even if there is some volatility right now in the market. If you want to differentiate, whatever is a vendor or media company, and you've been an expertise-built organization, if you want to differentiate, you're not going to differentiate by adding one more expertise. That's not going to work. So the only way you can differentiate is by being more performant. We realize the pitfalls of building our expertise-driven organization is that it creates silos. It's particularly difficult to evolve out of our current state.
So even the best new technology, disruptive, has less effect than consumers all deciding to do something different together.
So you can have the best technology on earth, but if you don't have the right business strategy to actually leverage it, it's not going to do anything.
And so what do you think is going to define XR's success moving forward?
What I would tell you is...
Who is your industry role model? Is there somebody in the industry that you admire or look up to?
Well, I can't say Bleuenn because she's here.
Welcome to Playback Pioneers, the podcast bringing fresh, unfiltered perspectives from the people shaping the future of playback technology and content experiences. I'm Josh Seeley from 5V Video, and I'll be your host for this series where we sit down with some of the biggest and brightest minds in the industry to talk about how they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible. In each episode, we hear from individuals who are pioneering new ways to deliver content, optimize playback experiences, and redefine how audiences engage with media. But what makes this podcast unique is our format. It's a relay-style conversation, meaning today's guest becomes tomorrow's host, passing the baton and keeping the conversation going. We're not here for the usual unpolished and PR responses and scripted sound bites. We want real, honest conversations, highlighting the challenges, innovations, and ideas that are driving the future of playback. In our last episode, we saw industry veteran Thierry Faultier, former head of video strategy at Harmonic, but Benjamin Schwarz, the VP of Greening and Streaming, through the ringer, asking him whatever he wanted. They explored key topics including attributional versus consequential data, device power usage, sustainability and RFPs, government initiatives, the green button dilemma, and a whole lot more. In this episode, we see Ben switch from guest to host. And today, Ben is joined by none other than Bleuenn Le Goffic, VP of Business Transformation at Accedo. Well, Ben, over to you as the host.
Thanks, Josh. Well, I'm honored to take the chair from now on. Let's start off then with the intro and picking up from where the last, keeping the baton going. So it was about sustainability in the last episode. And you actually led sustainability the business case at Accedo for several years. And I just wanted to know, what was the initial driver you had for making it a strategic priority?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe it can help if I give a definition of what is Accedo's business, because that will help the audience understand how does this business case was brought to the leadership team. So Accedo is a video solution provider. We help our media partners to build and manage OTT services. Part of that mandate is obviously to look into sustainability as part of a growth strategy. And why I'm presenting it that way is obviously that back in 2018, when we really decided to make sustainability as part of the business KPIs, a lot of stakeholders in the company personally interested and involved and concerned and looking at that transformation across industries. As consumers, as people, I think. We were also realizing that companies had a role to play, the private sector had a role to play. And then it sort of hit me back in the days that media was still somehow not really visible in that transformation. So we were hearing a lot about the retail space. We were hearing a lot about other industries, right? Transportation and so on. But technology, media, that wasn't really prominent in our day-to-day discussion. When you're going to a conference in media and entertainment, you didn't see back in 2018 sustainability left, right, center, which is now the case, right? Accedo is a private company, two Swedish founders, Michael Lantz and Fredrik Andersson. When I started to think about the role of media in the sustainability transformation, this is who I've worked with, is actually the leaders of my company, and asking them, okay, so, you've seen the media industry influencing things. What's the role of media in influencing people, in influencing the private sector, in influencing technology agenda? And we started to iterate on this. I think where we came from was more the interest of the impact of media versus corporate response to employees thinking we need to do something, right? It wasn't coming like that.
Bleuenn, you just said now, this is interesting for people, that your journey started with a really, really wide perspective. Your whole, what does it mean to society? What does it mean for other industries? And am I understanding right that you drilled down before you actually started doing anything? Because you mentioned the date 2018. And I remember in 2020, your name started appearing as somebody involved in things. So you spent like 2 years sort of internally thinking at the high level before you actually started talking about what Accedo might do in sustainability.
Yeah, that's very true. So we built a business case internally. We realized this is going to be very important for our industry. The impact will be great. Now we can talk about what is this impact and where we are in that journey. But we felt this is a transformation the industry will go through. Okay, now that we've come to that conclusion after many discussions, looking at other companies, you need to remember as well that our headquarters is in Sweden, right? So the Scandinavian engagement here from a private sector perspective was quite high back in 2018. Yep. So we were seeing a lot of startups going into the environmental sector and so on. So we decided, okay, this is a given. The industry will have to go through that transformation. So what does it mean for us as a business? And then we said, okay, we need to, this is very simple. So this is our Michael Lantz CEO move. This is very simple. We just need to become the best technology vendor in the industry that will lead sustainability. And, this is how it starts. It started by, we know there is an industry transformation. We want to be part of it, but we actually don't want to just be part of it. We want to lead it. And once you start like this, then everything else is about, okay, so the how. And the how took a bit of time because it's not, you have the intent, but it's not like any other innovation. It wasn't like, let's put an offering out there and let's see what the market says. It needed to have much more depth to it, right? So It took us a bit of time to obviously define the how and start investing in it.
Okay, and what would you say in those early times, sort of 2019 to 21 or so, what were the main challenges you faced to make sustainability your business strategy?
I think twofolded. I think the first one was... very weirdly at that time, I contacted the UN Global Compact saying, you're helping private sector going into sustainability. What should we do, right? The amount of guidelines that there were at that time was still very corporate centric and for very specific industries. So media and technology wasn't really addressed at that time. We're a company of 600 people. We're not millions of people like Google or Amazon, etc. So obviously the size of our company mattered in what is it that we should prioritize and so on. But so it took a bit of time for us to figure out the how. We were wondering, do we need to hire environmental experts? Do we need to? What does it mean, right? So I think this was for me where I got really surprised how little of a support there was for me being, in a company deciding we should move. Okay, but you're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna do this. But eventually we got there very quickly, and I think very quickly. It took us about a year to put our ESG strategy. So what we realized is that before we can even talk to the market, we need to figure out from a corporate standpoint what is our internal, our just self-assessment, right? We needed to start there. Quickly we realized that some customers of ours had been through that journey. Now they're not of the same size as we are. So ITV, BBC, with who we connected very early stage, they were obviously much more advanced than us in that journey. But then also through our investors, right, who have a portfolio of companies, we could get a lot more help on the corporate sustainability agenda. And so that was the first move. I think the second reaction we got was more from stakeholders within the company saying, this is great, but are we going to really make an impact? How do you think we're going to make an impact that matters? And questioning that was the second part we needed to address and answer. So internal engagement was, right, I think, not from a leadership perspective, but more from all of us realizing what is our role in that transformation.
And talking about your role, you mentioned the BBC, ITV. Last year, Accedo, through Francois, led the project called EcoFlow. And the EcoFlow 2 has just been confirmed that there's going to be an EcoFlow 2 project in 2025. What role is Accedo going to play in EcoFlow 2?
A bit of context for listeners. EcoFlow is an initiative across media companies and technology vendors to understand and assess the overall environmental impact of a video streaming service. But mainly from, I think, the first version of EcoFlow, which was last year's project, was really on gathering a lot of stakeholders that are working on sustainability, gathering technology vendors, understanding what can they contribute with in terms of data, what are the levers that have been discovered by organizations such as Greening of Streaming, and how do we articulate that into something that everyone around the table would understand and being able to action upon. So this was very much a first experiment. Even more from I would say, the value proposition of EcoFlow was really stakeholder engagement. For me, the major learning was, of course, understanding and putting an ecosystem on the paper, but that was already done by many organizations out there in the industry, whatever the impact or greening of streaming as you're leading. But also it was understanding how does this ecosystem react to those questions, right? So what are the big hurdles? Are they processes? Are they actual technology problem? Are they people understanding and awareness and so on? So business, prioritization, and so forth. I think on EcoFlow 2, what we are really looking at is what is stopping us from making the person accountable for the video streaming platform to actually have sustainability KPIs as part of their objectives, and how do we make a business case for them? The role of Accedo here is really, I think, again, from a stakeholder management perspective, making sure that this is one thing we're good at is to build business case. I think we understand very much the intersection of different challenges and how can we mitigate them. I think mainly the role of Accedo here is going to be to contribute and making sure that we are shaping this business case back to the main stakeholder that needs to take a decision at the end, right, of investment, I think.
Okay, so last year you kind of led it, and I heard in your sentence here this year you'll be more contributing. And just to finish off with this topic, a lot of us in the sustainability world are really focused on infrastructure, trying to get rid of the opacity around data centers and CDNs and stuff like that. Whereas you are a UI company, therefore you're about user behavior. Why do you think that's a useful angle in the sustainability story?
I would go a bit beyond. Maybe our interest is not just user behavior, but it's more, what is the user impact? If you look at our customers' challenges today, media companies' challenges, their influence, right? I think that this is how media can make a difference, back to the original business case, was in influencing consumer behavior. Now, influencing consumer behavior might mean, yes, of course, clicking on a button on a streaming platform. Yes, okay. But is that it? I don't think so. I think the bigger influence of media is obviously much somewhere else, right? It's obviously around the awareness of the current situation we are all sharing. It's the awareness of progress. It's the awareness of possibilities of change in the way that we behave. So if you see, for example, the initiative from Sky Ocean Rescue that has been collaborating with WWF, right? And they have, I think We Are Albert showcased one of their children TV show, Opki or something like this. It's a really cute panda. Eventually, this overall TV show and the production of this content is about addressing behavioral change to kids between 3 and 7-year-old, right?
Right.
This is the impact that media needs to have, but it's also a big cash machine. Okay, where does media industry invest in technology, right? So eventually it's also, there are other type of impact that media can have. But where we come from, I think, is how do we make sure that media streaming is also serving the user? And I think, will user behavior, where clicking on a button, holding on a brightness being reduced during pause button? Yes, there are actually changes you can make in a user experience that have an effect. Now, is that the biggest impact for society? I don't think so. But it's a very nice way to thinking, can I engage my users on environmental matters? Can I engage? And I can engage in different ways, through content, through features, through democratizing these kind of measurements that are a bit obscure, I think, even for end consumer, right? You don't really understand what it means. So that's, I think, where the biggest impact is and our interest.
I need to push you forward. So just one last closing question on the sustainability thing. You were talking about impact in your last few sentences. And so a very simple question to you, honestly, no PR here. What progress have we really made? Geopolitics are changing. People are saying maybe ESG was a bad idea. Sustainability has been deprioritized. So as we try and get ready for the new reality we're working in, what could you say has been achieved? You're one of the longest standing people in the industry who's been working on, what's different now from 2018? What have we actually done? Or is this just a big PR stunt?
I'll answer it in two ways. The first one is that back in 2019, I would never have been invited in a podcast to talk about societal change. I don't think so. So the big change to me is that it means that companies have grown a voice on that matter. Whatever they are deciding to remove that voice or not is down to every company, right? This is a private sector. It's not legally bound just yet. So I think that mindset has changed. The other thing that is very important, as any investment funds will tell you, is that you need to evaluate a transformation over a longer period of time. So what have we achieved so far? I think there is a lot of initiatives that we're seeing. First of all, most of the big media companies have gone through an ESG transformation. That's as simple as the first impact. The second is that I think that we're seeing more and more content production itself, sort of transformation into being more sustainable, but also the content, the actual storytelling is diversifying and is taking on the sustainability topic as a key one. So you can see now entertainment, media and entertainment, family entertainment type of services that we'll all have a categories of sustainability type of content. So what have we achieved? I think quite a bit. Now, are we where we were supposed to be now? Probably not. But, when you get invited around the table to talk to AWS or to Google about why can't we get access to the data, how do we make sure that we can measure ourselves, that we push demand out there, I think it's still much better than where we were back in the day. So no PR, but I would say that we're here in the longer game. We need to hold, even if there is some volatility right now in the market. It's not going to make you disappear. It's not going to make me disappear. And all the people that are working on this as daily jobs will continue pushing, right? So more to come, I'm sure.
A modestly positive outlook as soon as you take the right time frame. I love that, what you're saying, and that's what I experience too, is we live in daily patterns. We get up in the morning, we go to bed at night, and we kind of have feelings over those periods of time. And sometimes we can think about something in a week. A month is really pushing it in terms of our emotions. Years, nobody can think in years. And
it's difficult.
The work we're doing is things that will take years. And I think that's one of the issues with our mindset. So I'm pleased to be agreed. Let's move on to the next topic we agreed to discuss together, which is your core job now. You were Madam Sustainability or whatever or a few years back. Now I understand you're the transformation person. Your work focuses on business transformation. And I just wanted to very, very, very specific question, not to talk about business transformation in general, but why is it specifically important and difficult in media organizations?
You look at media organization as well as the vendor space. We all have been built on a expertise-driven type of organization. Broadcast is a technology challenge. Selling video is a commercial challenge and a marketing challenge. We have grown our organization to be, let's build the best expertise in order for us to be successful. And this was true because the biggest hurdle was the underlying either technology or the underlying methodology, right? And now we've come to an age, I think, hopefully not that old, but I do think that I've seen, it was so important to have the best expert in understanding streaming security, or the best expert in understanding latency in video streaming and so on. That still remains true. You still want expert, but this expertise has spread. It's not like you're going to have, there is one vendor, one team that has been excellent at doing that and everyone else doesn't do it. Yeah, of course, everyone else now has the ability to have this expertise. And mainly because, first of all, internet and everything has brought that knowledge sharing, but also cloud has democratized technology massively, right?
Open source too, perhaps?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think the access to expertise became, and I mean, emerging markets coming with massive amount of expertise and new ways of thinking, new ways of building. So acceleration has been quite important. If you want to differentiate, whatever is a vendor or media company, and you've been an expertise-built organization, if you want to differentiate, you're not going to differentiate by adding one more expertise. That's not going to work. So the only way you can differentiate is by being more performant. Every media company I've talked to or a vendor in the industry is going through the same thing, which is we realize the pitfalls of building our expertise-driven organization is that it creates silos. This is, for me, why in media and entertainment we're technology-heavy. We've created expertise-driven organization, and this has created silos, which means that it's particularly difficult to evolve out of our current state.
But what's interesting, before we move on, just the silos, the risk aversion, I want to understand in the context of broadcast shifting to streaming and this transformation issue, do you see that we're at the end of an old world and the old world is going to disappear and we're entering a new world? Or is there actually is reinvention going to be possible for the big broadcasters? So is it basically a transformation, because this is the core topic, or is it a change?
I don't think there is a black or white answer to this one. I can give you an example, I think, which talks well about the companies that have identified that they need to transform and are leading that transformation will be able to transform. The ones that are not going through that journey then will be disrupted. And this is when change happens, right? This is when you have new players replacing older players, traditional players. So I don't know if you've heard about this, and I hope I will be able to explain it quite simply. So NBC Universal actually launched 2 weeks ago or something like this,
Right.
a new broadcast offering, hyper local offering that will be able to, through NBC and Telemundo, I think, stations, to actually deliver on a hyper personalized broadcast experience. It's interesting to see, you should talk to Thierry Fautier about the technology side, not me, for sure. But it's interesting to see what NBCU is trying here. And I think what they are doing is that they understood the business challenge of the broadcast service offering, right, to the market. They understood the need. One of the value proposition of streaming has been on the personalization aspect, right? Being able to address more the end consumer needs. What NBCU is trying to do is, and I don't know yet if they are going to be successful with that offering, but you can see that the reflection has been, okay, so what if we were to think the offering differently? They looked at how technology can enable it, but I don't think this was a technology first innovation. It's a business transformation to try to evolve to actually connect more with the market needs. Maybe a bit of a weird answer to your question, but to me, some will definitely transform. Some will have to be drastically changed. And then because they haven't gone on that journey, I think. So it's a business decision that needs to happen, I think.
But you, just to carry on for change, you've just been talking about change. So a really simple question. Could you just address whether you see it being driven more by technology or consumer behavior?
Always the market first.
That's not an answer. I said technology or consumer behavior.
But that's consumer, right? For a media company, it's always the consumer first, right?
So even the best new technology, disruptive, has less effect than consumers all deciding to do something different together.
So you can have the best technology on earth, but if you don't have the right business strategy to actually leverage it, it's not going to do anything. And you can see that in the startup model, right? So the startup era of identifying amazing technology, but if you can't put that into a product that is actually solving someone's pain or resolving someone or creating some value to someone, this is absolutely useless. You get ideas, and I can see this with AI, and we can talk about XR as well. You get ideas because the technology triggers an opportunity, right? That doesn't make that a business strategy. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to go into the wrong business strategy, thinking this will work, and it doesn't. And where you need to get clever as a business, whatever it's our media customers or ourselves, is that you need to be able to course correct. You need to be able to make sure that you understand and not fall in love with your business strategy if it's not actually what the market needs. So everything needs to be eventually driven out of what the market needs, and the end consumer is our customer's market.
That sounds a little bit like wishful thinking. Excuse me for pushing you,
Yeah,
because the reality of our jobs, I've had jobs a bit like yours in my time. Sometimes the reality is you do have a new technology, and you're said, Bleuenn, take this technology, make it work. We're going to talk about XR and the end of this conversation. We could talk about AI. As we record this, Mobile World Congress just closed its doors today. And the few reports I've had, just AI. There's one technology that's been mentioned in Barcelona is AI.
Yeah.
And so in our real world jobs, what's the key that you see, the keys to getting buy-in when you do still need to deploy technologies?
Back to the business case. And this is why I'm saying this is what the market needs. If you can't tie, when we did sustainability, when we are doing AI right now, when we have chosen to go on XR, the only thing, it's not like we're making millions of dollars out of our XR offering at Accedo, right? why are we investing in XR? There is a business. It's not because we like the technology. Yeah, it's a brilliant technology, but that doesn't make you continuing investing in it over time. What makes you continuing it over time is eventually what will be the value proposition and the impact, right? We do trust there is a market and it will actually address a need. And if we didn't have that, we would have shut down that investment, right? Because other investment could become more prioritized. And this is where everyone is a bit, I mean, in AI, everyone is a bit obviously, some says tired about everyone talking about AI and so on. But I think we just need to have empathy that every business is asking themselves the true question. So where am I not performant? Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something that AI can help me with or not? And already those two questions, I mean, the first one is, in a lot of businesses, is not that actually easy to answer. Why am I not performant? So before you actually find the business case for AI, you actually need to be able to assess your business at depth, right? At a very deep level. And that's not easy. So this is why it's so complex and everyone is going through that hurdle of what is the business case. There is not one size fits all. To me, it needs to come down to your business and your own assessment of where you need help. And this is when AI come in.
So just to close off this transformation topic, one of my hobby horses, I want to ask you about that, and it's linked with sustainability. There's an idea that some companies are looking to things called regenerative business models. And I just wondered if you've ever encountered that kind of concept in the media space.
No, but you started to explain that to me last time. So do you mind sharing a bit more about this, and I can brainstorm. We can brainstorm a bit about it.
Those of us in the sustainability space are usually here for a reason, because we believe that there is a biodiversity problem, there is a biomass problem, there's a climate warming problem, and when we take a step back and say, even if we do manage to make in my case, make streaming go green and stop having any negative carbon impact, the damage that's been done by humankind on the planet is so devastating and vast that once we stop ruining the planet, the environment, we'll have to start fixing it too. There's multiple angles into this. It's a very holistic vision of how we as human beings, we've organized ourselves in ways that have dissociated from actual living systems. The way life works, we could define life is here, and the way we work is here, and there is no interaction. The things we do, the way we organize ourselves, are completely decorrelated from the way life works.
I've heard that in actually more from a finance standpoint. So where companies in the private sector are looking at their debt to finance initiatives to create more value than the ones that they have that they create as part of their business strategy, right? I think it is, what I can see is that in the mindset of a CEO, and I think this is where the decision needs to happen. I think it's very clear that the more you build empathy for the impact that you're making as a business, the more your business will be resilient and recognized. Now, it's the nice thing to say, but I think this kind of notion, and we are currently, for example, with our CEO and our CFO, we are in the CSRD conversation. We're looking at okay, what does it mean? What is the how do we get with the changes that are sort of occurring right now? But still, that we can control. We have guidelines and so on. I think in this type of discussions on a philosophical level, we have those discussions with our among the top management. It's a given that this is the direction that we want to go. When we look into, however, how do you actually tangibly implement it, we have very limited help or trigger to actually do this. Of course, regulation, I mean, with CSRD is a good example of, this is then on the table to be addressed. But I don't think this is the only path for companies to look into that. So I would very happily, if you want to push this agenda in the vendor space, and we want to iterate on what would that mean for businesses, how would we look into that? from a finance perspective, from a people perspective as well. And we should probably define then a framework for this.
We have a work plan ahead of us, Bleuenn. I look forward to that.
That sounds good.
I need to push this forward because we're running out of time, and we said we'd finish with some of the tech that you're looking to for the future more. So a really very precise question for you this time. You're a UI company, user interface, user experience, and so a lot of us are thinking the future is going to be more immersive. I've worked myself on immersive technologies for 25 years. And one of the things you see is there's a struggle with engagement. You know, people, when it's new, wow, this is really cool. And it's literally 5 minutes, the usual that. And it wears off in 5 minutes, whether you're wearing a headset, whether you're flicking through 16 different channels to watch your Formula One. You think it's an amazing thing for 5 minutes, and then you get a bit unengaged. And so what do you think is going to define XR's success moving forward?
It's not a straightforward answer. But what I would tell you is that I think the big difference with this technology is that it's not a at-home only technology. And I think as the mobile did for us, where it became the thing that is with us constantly, I do think that the use cases that you're seeing more and more, whatever it's with Gen AI and an immersive experience, or what you're seeing with at MWC, we're demonstrating with Ericsson the public transport immersive experience, because everyone knows how boring is the public transport experience. So I can imagine that the democratization of those wearables, this new device, right, will certainly be by maybe other use cases than media and entertainment. That being said, I do think that media and entertainment, as for everything, leads with content and influence and brands. So when you have companies like Red Bull, or that have, you know, really engaged users with content on different formats and so on, and storytelling, then you obviously they will contribute to driving, you know, the consumer to buy those platforms. Now, is that going to be the main use case for those platforms? I don't think so. Not until this become the, you know, new mobile of the world, right? But I do think that in a lot of different use cases we are seeing now an uptake, and the combination of, as I said, Gen AI and immersive is brilliant. It's actually solving a very, very good set of use cases.
Okay, that will lead me to a last question. Then you mentioned AI again. It's been throughout this conversation. My experience with immersive technologies was basically founded in something I did like 25 years ago. I was working with a startup that was trying to produce software so that ordinary people could create video. There was no immersive, it was just creating video. And it came to the realization that creating a 2D experience with moving images, so basically creating a video, requires two specific cells. It requires some kind of artistic intent, and it requires some technical knowledge. And if you don't have those two, you make bloody awful videos to watch. You know, there's nothing worse than going to a friend's house and say, let me show you my video from my last holiday. You know, usually it's a terrible experience. And so ordinary people need those two skills. As we move to XR, all its variations, we're basically giving the user the ability to create his own 2D experience, because XR is a 2D experience. We have 2D, we have two eyes, and we watch it through our eyes. So in this 3D space, you're letting people create their own experience. And because some of them don't have either the artistic ability or the technical ability to create a cool experience, we need to help them. And I have this kind of belief somebody's going to come out, and could there be a real amazing killer app of using AI? This probably wouldn't be generative AI, but another kind of AI through machine learning, through I don't know what. So that AI could provide the killer app environment for XR to really explode, because we would provide those help people with artistic ability and technical ability.
It's a very complex question to answer, because there are a lot of paradigm into this. But if I choose one angle out of it, I would say that we know what are the key metrics that makes a good experience, digital experience. That's not going to be changed by there might be some augmentation of it, but eventually the fundamentals are there. Now, when you give control to someone, And today you can, in the mobile world, right? You give control to how do you manipulate your home screen, how do you actually do things. But there are certain things, behaviors that are actually set in order for you to understand and personalize your experience to certain boundaries, right? This is why Apple has guidelines, right? This is why companies that are delivering an experience digitally have set boundaries, right? So who's setting the boundaries of the immersive experience? Maybe Accedo will, but eventually I think I'm less concerned about this, more than concerned about what is the end consumer wish, because the technology of configuration and personalization is already there. There's no problem. You can actually, I don't know if you've heard about this Swedish startup, which is called Lovable .dev, I think. It's an amazing tool. Go for it. It's you build your product out of prompt. It's fantastic. I could build a streaming service for kids out of prompted. The experience was great, and I'm clearly not an artistic person, but good enough for me to get started and iterate on my product and so on. So I think if you give random people like me the possibility to create, of course we can, as long as under certain guidelines, and the rendering doesn't. You're not there to become the expert of the streaming experience or the expert of things. So I agree with you. I think the experience, and I'm not sure it's a killer app, but I think we've seen app stores before. We've seen, Google, Apple really investing in those things. We know that a lot of big companies are looking at this platform, and Qualcomm is one of them, for example, where they have had this intent to really start thinking about that common experience on immersive devices, and how should we drive content and usage on it. And I think this will come. So I think this will follow exactly the same pattern as any other device. It will have guidelines, but maybe it's the type of experience that we haven't really yet seen there. So that would be my take.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have a final question to pass the baton to so I don't know if you want to address it, but I know that you're going to be talking to somebody from Qualcomm in the next podcast, and you mentioned their investment in XR. So my question to them is, will immersive media be driven by, is it going to be gaming, or does traditional media have a role?
I'm sure he will have a good answer for this. So looking forward to the discussion with Patrick for sure.
Thank you very much, Bleuenn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. Very enjoyable listen to that. I think it was a really good conversation touching on some of those important aspects right now that we're seeing within our sector, and raising a lot of issues which we need to combat together as an industry, right? So thank you to the both of you. Bleuenn, I think you did very well in the hot seat, and I think Ben, you did very well as the host this week, right? So thank you very much to the both of you. I always like to end with some quick fire questions, right? And these are a little bit different. They're not necessarily industry related. It's more gives our listeners and viewers an opportunity to maybe get to know how both of you think and what you like to do in your own time as well, right? So Ben, I will come to you first with this, and then Bleuenn second. So Ben, who is your industry role model? Is there somebody in the industry that you admire or look up to? Is there anybody that comes to mind for that?
Well, I can't say Bleuenn because she's here.
Sorry.
No, there's the Mathieu from the ITV Sustainability Director, who I had the pleasure to interview about 6 months ago for a blog piece I was doing. He really impressed me. Jérémy Mathieu. So in the sustainability area, he's a role model for me. And on the more deep tech side, I've taken over here at Greening of Streaming from Dom Robinson. He's one of my deep tech gurus. When I'm stuck with anything that's too complicated for me, I usually ask him.
Good answer. Love it.
Yeah.
Bleuenn?
I mean, there is one name that comes immediately to mind. So this will sound very corporate, but obviously my two founders. So I've been, for the ones who know me, I've been 12 years with Accedo. So I've tagged along them, and I think Michael Lance and Frederick Anderson, they've both been mentoring me throughout the years. And the reason why they are role models to me are for each of them are very, very different. But I would say that Frederick is, it's this effect that you suddenly have a good idea and you're like, oh yeah, that's such a brilliant idea. And then you realize that 3 weeks ago, Frederick talked to you about that, and he had already thought about it. So his capability of innovating and creating, thinking out of the box has been beyond what I've seen in the industry. And then Michael Lanz, because of his drive, of his understanding of the market, of his passion for building a business. I'm just constantly learning with them. So those would be my immediate, very close to me role models, I would say.
Nice. Really good answer, both of you. Next, I'll come back to you again, Ben, first for this. If you had to give a TED talk outside the area of your day-to-day expertise, what would it be on?
Oh, it's very hard to leave I know. I'd probably do something about why Baroque art, I find it so inspirational. That particular period in history, between the 17th and 18th centuries, really fascinates me. I'm a musician, so I'm particularly interested in the musical side, but I have a little bit of culture on the painting and architecture side. And I love how the rules that those artists had to work in was so constrained, and yet they always managed, well, the ones we have now, the works of art we have from that period, 350 years later, they're all so unique and different, yet they have to obey such amazingly stringent rules to be considered works of art at that time. I find that fascinating.
I love that. And it's always good to learn something new about you, Ben, right? Very good answer. Bleuenn?
Damn.
I get it's a difficult one, right?
No, it's difficult after. Of course. That sounds like a TED talk. I would actually be interested in. Same thing. I will answer with my guts. I'm not thinking very much on that answer, but I would say that I think that's something that I feel we often don't talk that much, but I think is for me a constant reflection on is the definition of being an adult. I think it's the level of responsibility that you have to be an adult, a bit responsible, a bit you have. For some of us, we also have kids. And the responsibility that goes with it, how do you shape yourself? Before it was all natural, not thinking about it, and now it has to be. You have to have high expectation on yourself, on what you're doing, what you're conveying. This and the more you get the older you become, apparently the more responsibility you have on actually being that. I don't know. You need to probably become a role model for someone. You need to. It's a very interesting challenge, but it's also that I think everyone, when you have time to and the luxury to think, is going through, and we don't have a lot of empathy for each other on this. I think this is a challenge we're all experiencing, and we should maybe share tips and tricks for being a good adult out there, which is not easy. So I would be interested in someone doing that TED Talk and going to it for sure.
That doesn't just sound like a TED Talk I would watch or listen. It sounds like a TED Talk I need, Bleuenn, right? So so I very much like that answer. I think that was a really, really good one on the spot. Next up, Ben, coming back to you again first, sir. If you could listen to only one song for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, I told you about my passion for music, but I won't go there because you're asking for a song that people would know. And when I went through the most traumatic period of my personal life, through my divorce like 11 years ago, one of the songs that, it's really corny, I'm sorry, but it really did help, and I must have listened to it 1,000 times, a particular version of Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive" by Cake. So it's the song, it's the same lyrics, but it's a completely different musical interpretation of it. That kind of kept me alive for a long time. So I imagine if I only had one song, that would be a high candidate. And otherwise, anything by the Cranberries. I love the Cranberries too.
Good, like that. Bleuenn, it's a difficult one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's horrible because first of all, I have zero musical culture, like basically zero. So I would probably be okay. So I need to choose one. So I would probably go with, and I don't even know the name of the song. So I would probably be going with my
Well, now you have
favorite.
to sing it, Bleuenn. You have to sing it if you don't know the name.
No, I know that's even worse than anything else. Don't make me doing that. But no, I would go with the original soundtrack of one of my favorite movie or something, right? And just recently I rewatched the Fifth Element, so probably somewhere from the Fifth Element movie.
Love that.
Yeah.
Good answer. Again, it's tough on the spot, right? Very much so. And then I guess kind of finally here, Ben, again, I'll come to you first, sir. You may have answered this with the song, right? But I'll ask you this anyway. Is there a book, podcast, or movie that has changed your perspective?
Again, I feel it's a bit corny to say something that everybody knows about and has heard about, but was probably one of the most impactful in mine was *Sapiens*, the Harari book, which kind of tells the last 10,000 years of human history with a quite novel lens that came out about 15 years ago or something. That really did change the way I think about the world and humankind. And there's lots of nuggets we could talk about on that. We could do a podcast on that, but there won't be time to develop them. But I highly recommend it. If you don't have time to read the book, you can pick up the key talking points from a zillion different websites. That's *Sapiens*.
Great recommendation. Bleuenn?
So it's so unfair to majority of people on Earth, but it's a French book and it's only available in French. I've looked it up. There's no translation, so I'm sorry. It's going to be only for French listeners. But there is a book called. Huh?
Pas de problème.
Pas de problème. Exactly. This is between Ben and me.
Yeah.
So there is a book called La vie est belle. The translation is Life is Beautiful. And it's utopia about a person becoming the French president, and who is gonna give the possibility of people working only a very small amount of hours per week, if the rest of the time they actually serve the society.
Yeah.
And so working from, in France, it's 35 hours, I think, of the norm, right? 35 hours of work per week. And I think it went down to, I think it's 8 or something in the book. I don't remember exactly. But it's an amazing utopia, because when you are reading through it, you actually realize this is when being given a choice, and when society should change, how would you do with hospitals? How do you do with, a lot of things that need a 24/7 type of organization? What would be the solution? And the author came with things that are not completely destructive. And so this utopia, which I'm aware it's not going to happen tomorrow, just made something that seems completely impossible not so impossible at all. And then it feels like, are we so stuck in our ways that we can't even change a bit? And it just opened so many new perspective for me about what do I take as not changeable today that actually could be if we had different people maybe, or different coming with different ideas. I don't know. So pushing a bit the boundaries of what I feel is stuck and set, right, in my own assessment. So yeah, that would be my answer.
might have to sit on ChatGPT just translating it myself. Again, it feels like I need that one. A very good recommendation for the French listeners there. Well, look, that's all, right? Thank you very much to both of you. I think you were great hosting, Ben. I think you were great in the hot seat, Bleuenn. As Ben alluded to, on our next episode, we're speaking with Patrick Costello from Qualcomm, where Bleuenn will take the seat of host. So thank you very much for both of you for being involved today, and we hope our listeners enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does it
Thank
mean
you,
that I
Josh.
need to answer the same question about my favorite book or favorite song? This
We'll get
time
some
I'll
new ones
prepare.
for you, Bleuenn.
Damn
We'll get
it.
some new ones for you,
What
Bleuenn.
was you? I was in the last one. You
Always
just...
new. You're always in the hot seat on the Playback Pioneers podcast, right? So that's what this is about, Bleuenn. So we'll have some fresh ones for you next episode. Don't worry. And yeah, thank you to the both of you.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks.
much. And thank
Bye.
you, Ben. It was very nice.